if the integer part of x represents the greatest integer that is less than or equal to x, then find the limit as x approaches 0 from the left of 2 over the integer part of x. So the best way to do this is to graph it, and we're going to use a table. So let's start with x, and then integer part x, and then 2 over integer part x. So we're going to pick, let's say, -2. We're going to pick values in between these integers, so we get an idea of what's going on. So at -2, the integer part is -2 because it is an integer. Now with -1.5, the way to think about this is there's a thing called a floor and a ceiling. So the integer part is the floor. So -1.5 is going to be in the middle. What is smaller than -1.5? That's going to be the floor. So the floor and the ceiling are integers. So what's lower than -1.5 is -2, and then what's higher than it is -1. So the floor of it, or the integer part, is -2. And it doesn't matter if it's like -1.4, -1.3, -1.2. It's still the floor, or the integer part, is still going to be -2. But then when you reach at -1, it's going to be now -1 because -1 is an integer. So when it's an integer, the greatest integer that is less than or equal to that integer is the integer itself. So in fact, we could just write that out. 0, 1 are integers, so we could just leave that as that. Now with -0.5, we know -0.5 is between 0 and -1. So the integer part, think of it as a floor, this falls down to -1. And then with 0.5, we know 0.5 is between 0 and 1. So if this falls down, that's going down to 0. And so now we do 2 divided by that. So 2 divided by -2 is -1. And then 2 divided by -1 is -2. 2 divided by 0, that is undefined. But then 2 divided by 1 is 2. So actually, let's keep going. Let's go 1.5 and 2. So 2 is an integer, so we know that works. 1.5, that's between 2 and 1, so if this falls down, that goes down to 1. So the floor of that is 1. So if you do 2 divided by 1 is 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So now we can graph this. So between -2, so -2 starts at -1, and then -1.5 is still -1 until at -1. At -1, it jumps down to -2. And then -0.5 is still -2 until it reaches 0. At 0, it's going to be undefined because you cannot divide by 0. In fact, from 0 to 1, or right before 1, it's undefined because it's always divided by 0. But then when you reach 1, you get 2 as the answer. And at 1.5, you still get 2. But at 2, it switches down to 1. And then it keeps going, that same pattern. So now if I'm coming in from the left, this direction, so at 0, it looks like it's going to -2 as a limit. So that would be the answer.